Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the A to B podcast, your number one source for military entrepreneurship and entertainment. Guys, today, unfortunately, I am not joined by my co-host, but he did want me to give you guys a heartfelt message, okay? He says that he is truly sorry for all the banter that he's had for all the East Coast Marines, and he is finally able to admit that the East Coast Marines are way better than the West Coast Marines. More specifically, all of those Marines that are coming from MCRD, Paris Island, are superior beings. This is his exact word, guys. Actually, I had the text message, but I memorized all this stuff. They are superior beings to anybody that has ever graduated from MCRD San Diego. Barry's words, not mine. As a matter of fact, guys, he even told me, send him a DM right now. If you are a Paris Island Marine, send Barry a DM right now saying, Barry, I want my apology. And he said that he would personally apologize to every single one of you guys. Okay, so there's that. Barry, I love you. You know you said those things. Just come forward with it. Guys, today, moving on. Today we have a very special podcast for you guys, even though Barry's not here. We brought in an infantry Marine. Now, you know, we've interviewed a lot of Marines. We've even interviewed a couple of very heavily known social media influencers that are still in the military. But today, we want to bring somebody that you probably have never even heard of, but that's okay because these are the real stories that the A to B podcast want to share. So today we brought you Brandon Evans. What's up, Brandon? How you doing, brother?
Hey, man, thank you for having me on here. This is a really awesome experience.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it, man. You know, you reached out to me. You said that you wanted to be on the podcast. You went to the link that's currently in the bio. You guys can go there too. And then you reserved a spot to be on the podcast.
I did.
Now, just so you know, right? Just because you go in there and you reserve a spot does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to be on the podcast. However, it does guarantee that, and I'm going to call you and we're going to have a conversation. And we had a conversation. You're very well spoken. You know, have a bunch of very valid things that you want to talk about. So we want to afford the opportunity to people like you, man, to come onto the podcast and essentially share your story, man.
And I appreciate that. I think it'll be really good because there's a lot of people I know with social media now where it seems like they're trying really hard to push this agenda that it's more for them, or they get out and they feel like they just have this bad, you know, feelings with the Marine Corps or the infantry, and they just talk poorly about it. I'm not here to do either of those things because I have no social media like huge presence, and I enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps Infantry. So my whole purpose and job here today is to let people that know at home, like, what do you want to do? Is this really for you? What the life is like, and just clear up any misunderstandings that people might have about the infantry.
Yeah, that's great, man. I definitely appreciate you saying that, man, because when I was on recruiting duty, brother, my biggest enemies were Marines that got out. Mm-hmm. You know, like you will be surprised, right? Because we're all like Semper Fi, we're a brotherhood or whatever. But dude, as a recruiter, that was my biggest thing. It was talking if they had like a cousin or if they had like an uncle or something like that was in the Marine Corps, the cousin was saying like, don't do it, just go to the Air Force. Which I don't blame him for saying that, but as a recruiter, that just sucks because how do you counter that?
Well, I think there's a big difference between, like, for me, I would tell my little brothers because they thought about joining, and I said, hey, join the Air Force. But I told them, I said, I had a good time in the Marine Corps. I had an awesome time, but I think what I wanted from the Marine Corps is not what they wanted from the military. If they're just looking for guidance, if they're just looking for something to help them with the education or something to do later, do the Air Force. If you're looking to have a harder life, if you're looking to do something that's meaningful, if you want to wear that, you know, dress blue uniform and say that, you know, you're a Marine, then by all means, this is the right branch for you. And I remember whenever I was growing up, the only influencer I knew was Nava the Beast. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
But
he's in real estate now.
Is he?
Yeah, he's in real estate down in Texas. Nava, this is the 5th shout out I give you in the podcast. You definitely need to freaking answer your DMs.
Yeah, I remember he was the only guy that was like a major influencer, and besides like these really old guys who like were in between 2001 and 5, and they have the old crappy webcam and they tell you about boot camp, but like it was so long ago, it's kind of almost irrelevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's funny how social media has impacted the recruiting world and just the military world in general.
Yeah. Now, Brandon, what, besides wanting to share your story and all that stuff, what really brings you into the A2B podcast and wanting to do this?
Well, first off, I love y'all's content.
Thank you.
I've seen Barry's videos for the past year. And then recently on TikTok, y'all just slowly worked your way into the algorithm. And I remember it was the video with you and the Marine from 4th Marines, the admin.
Yeah. YRF Tony?
Yes, that was which was a very good episode. If you haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode. And I commented, I don't know what drove me to do it. He was talking about, do you have to be tough to be in the infantry? And I just remember I commented and I was like, wow, there's a lot of people in the comments who are misinformed. And I just took it out of, my own personal schedule. I'm on summer break, so I start school in about 2-3 weeks. And I was like,
nice.
what better time to, put myself out there and maybe I start a social media presence. You know what I mean? Like maybe this is the forefather of me doing that.
Yeah, good, man. Good. Well, we definitely appreciate you having here. Some of the topics that we're definitely going to talk about is, how the hell did you end up here on the West Coast? Because from off-camera conversations, you were East Coast Marine your entire life. You went to Paris Island and all those things. So we definitely going to talk about that. So where are you originally from?
I'm from Savannah, Georgia. Okay,
from Savannah, Georgia. As of today, we are recording in San Diego, California.
Yep.
And how old were you when you first joined?
I just turned 18 years old. I turned 18 November 14th, and I went to boot camp November 28th.
Okay, so was that straight out of high school?
Yep.
Okay, so did you join when you were in high school?
Well, technically through the DEP or the
delayed entry program.
Yeah, I technically did because I went through MEPS while I was still in.
Okay, well, you were still in high school.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember your recruiter?
Vaguely. I remember I had to ask around before I saw. I'm bad with names, but at the time he was Corporal Chalkley.
So a corporal.
Yeah, he just graduated because he just graduated. So I don't think he got his 100 points yet, or he just did and it didn't register in the system.
Okay.
So I had a fresh recruiter.
Oh, so he was brand new, not because he got in trouble, but because
he was a very brand new corporal.
Okay, interesting. So a corporal is a recruiter. We're definitely going to talk about that because yes, you can go to recruiting school as a corporal. Okay,
and he got me good. He got me on a good 6-year contract. He, his selling words were good. I can't wait to talk about
man,
it.
I guarantee you, he got promoted on the spot
after what he told you. After what I'm about to tell you, they should have made him sergeant major.
Oh, what happened? What did he do?
So, he tried to talk me out of the infantry contract for one. He tooth and nail because I had a 86 ASVAB and 115 or 120 GT score. So I was a pretty above average.
You're one of the smart infantrymen.
Yeah. Well, smart on paper. And,
okay.
And so he told me, he was like, hey man, you have intel. Like, do you not realize how hard intel is?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll look into it. I was in high school, so I had nothing better to do. And I looked into it and I wanted to do forensic science in the intel community, like go to Afghan, Iraq, Iran, go to where these places were and figure out intel where they might be. I was looking up on Reddit, YouTube, trying to find any information. Mm-hmm. And I went up to him and I said, hey, so like this intel forensic science, well, how hard is that? And he goes, well, you have about a 10% chance of doing that. Like that's really competitive, really hard. And I said, well, if I join the infantry, what's the chances of me making that? And he goes, oh, like 100%, dude. Like it's so easy. And I was like, well, I'm a numbers guy. Like 100%, 10%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he brought me to the office, later, a few months later, and he goes, hey, I have this new contract in. It's called the Squad Leader Development Program. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, you're going to sign for 6 years instead of 4. And I was like, I don't know. That's kind of tough, And he goes, but think of it this way. You're going to do 20 years anyways. So if you think about it, this is $5,000 that you're just getting for free. And I was like, well, crap, if I am doing 20 years.
They got your ass.
Yeah, I signed right then and there. I said,
really?
They said,
because that was a $5,000 bonus, huh?
Yeah, so I got $5,000 straight out after ITB. So as soon as I hit the fleet. So I was a PFC with $5,000. Well, like $3,800 after tax. But
yeah,
Man, I was hitting Domino's ups,
Yeah,
Wendy's.
of course, of
yeah.
course. And when you think about it, for that $5,000 for that extra 2 years, you're really getting paid like a $2 extra a month.
Yeah. No,
For the $3,800. You just hit the whack, 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 whack. That's how they get you guys with the freaking infantry contract.
Every first sergeant major, staff sergeant tells me the same thing. And they were like, wow, you really signed on for $2 extra a paycheck. I said, sure did.
Yeah, but I mean, it's okay. You were going to do it anyways. If you're going to do the infantry, might as well get the extra money. It's better than anything, right? Okay, so how was your time in the delayed entry program? Because obviously you were in the Marine Corps for 6 years.
Yeah.
The delayed entry program for you, was it a pleasant experience? Was it a bad experience? Obviously, it sounds like you got some really good recruiters down there in Savannah, Georgia, part of the 6th Marine Corps district, best district in the entire Marine Corps.
They were awesome, and we kicked the Army recruiters' butt and everything. They didn't want to PT with us anymore. I remember we would do dual PT with them, and they ended up stopping because we would crush them.
Yeah, of course.
Not just us, but our recruiters would crush their recruiters, anything. And we were pretty tight. We went out and got lunch together, like the poolies. I did the delayed entry program with my buddy. We did the buddy system.
Oh, nice.
So that was really cool. Me and him, we became best friends solely because we both wanted to join the Marine Corps. It was we were, I believe, sophomore year. He said we went to the same recruiter at our high school, and we were like, "Hey, man, you want to join?" Like he didn't have a ride, and I offered him a ride, and became my best friend for that. So
Hell yeah.
We had a really awesome experience.
So did the recruiter have to go get you, or did you walk into the recruiting office?
Kind of both. So the recruiter initially, it wasn't him. It was someone else my sophomore year. They came to my high school. And I remember I was originally going to join the Army. I wanted to go Army Airborne because my grandpa, he was in Vietnam as one. And I remember sitting there as a kid watching. We were soldiers, platoon, with all the Army, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. And, my grandpa told me, Airborne School, you're just running. That was the only thing he ever told me. He's like, you run, you jump out of a plane. I remember talking to the Marine recruiter, and I was like, yeah, man, I kind of don't like running, though. And he goes, well, join the infantry. You don't run. And I was like,
you walk everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, how convenient.
Well, he said, you think you have time to run around when you're shooting the enemy? And I was like, makes sense to me. And it was just that conversation that
and then a couple of months later in freaking ITB, I'm up, they see me, I'm down.
For 4 miles. You know what I mean?
For 4 miles.
And so they were good, you know what I'm saying? And I remember, going, okay, well, let me go to the Army recruiter still, because that was my first choice. And I'm not going to try and talk too down on them, but man, they were just a bad representation.
Of the Army?
Yeah. One was like really scrawny. I know I'm a skinny guy, but I'm not trying to be a recruiter. And one was kind of overweight. They just didn't lack really good people skills. And I walked to the Marine Corps recruiting station because they were next door. This, Corporal Chalkley, this guy's a stud. Like, just looks like chiseled Greek god. Really nice smile. Talks to you smooth. And he was like, "Hey, man, welcome. We'll get you right, settled on in." And I was like, "Man, this is where I need to be. If I want to make a change and a difference in my life, this is where I need to be."
Okay, good. Now, how was boot camp for you? And do you feel that your recruiters prepared you correctly for boot camp?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I think, as far as the Marine Corps goes, as long as the Marine Corps boot camp's made to pass. It's not made to fail you. They don't just pass everyone, but if your recruiter sets you up for any sort of success, it's passing the IST. And if you can pass the IST, at that point, it's just a matter of not quitting.
Yeah.
And so for me, though, boot camp wasn't really like this hard thing. It was just more of like a check in the box. Because I was like, if I'm going to join the infantry,
you knew you had harder things to come.
This is going to be more of a first phase of like, is this really for me? And I think after like the first 2 weeks, I'm sure it is for everyone. Like after the first 2-3 weeks, you're like, okay, I can do this. I just now have to actually like do it. And this is where I think the first mental toughness comes from, because I don't think boot camp is inherently hard. I'm sure if you had, Sergeant Major Bull as your drill instructor, maybe, but
that's debatable.
Yeah, he was a West Coast drill instructor. The East Coast,
that's why. That's debatable.
And so, but no, seriously, it's more of, can I wake up and do this every day? Can I wake up at 4:30, or whatever time they wake up? Can I drill? Can I just get slayed all day? Can I go, deal with the ins and out of it for 3 months? And if you're mentally tough enough to do that, pretty much you're set up for the Marine Corps as long as you keep that mental toughness.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good. I felt like it set up all the foundation that I needed to be for being a Marine.
Do you remember any crazy boot camp stories?
Actually, yeah. So I told you I did the buddy system.
Yeah.
I got dropped week 1. And yes.
So much for buddy system.
I know. And I don't think I ever cried in the Marine Corps. I don't, maybe like.
Why the hell you get dropped week 1? I'm sorry, my ADHD kicked in.
Yeah.
Like why the hell did you get, before we go into the crying situation, why did you get dropped week 1?
So because I got this infection. And so whenever I was in receiving, because receiving is technically not training day 1, right?
No, it's
Black Friday. That's training day 1, right?
Yeah, that's training day 1. They call them forming days, F days.
Yeah. So I got this weird infection. My right leg was like swollen from like literally the hip all the way to my ankle.
Oh, damn.
Twice as big as the left side. And I remember my drill instructors were doing like the little hygiene, whatever. And they noticed my leg and they were like, why are you looking disgusting? And I was like, this recruit doesn't know, and they were going to drop me. And I was kind of straight up with my drill instructor. I said, sir, this recruit does not want to get dropped. This recruit joined with his buddy. This recruit, wants to do this. And they told me to go away, came back, and they're like, can you pass the IST? And I was like, I'm going to pass the IST. Paraphrasing a little bit now, but I passed the IST, and, I passed with probably like 15, 20 seconds. And he told me, he was like, if you pass the IST, we'll get you on light duty for like 3-4 days, let the swelling go down, or at least see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, cool. So we went to Navy Medical, got our shots and everything. And I remember one of the corpsmen saw my legs and they're like, dog, you're getting dropped. And, of course I was like, my drill instructor said no. My drill instructor, said
it's really not up to him though.
Yeah. But like at the time, I thought drill instructors were the say all, be all. They could tell the commandant on what to do.
Yeah.
And, I didn't realize corpsmen take precedence. And so they were like, no, sorry, you're getting dropped. And I cried. I really did. I was boohoo, woe is me, feeling sorry for myself in the middle of Navy Medical, which it's funny looking back now. Some guys probably go home like, yeah, I saw some kid cry today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, how long were you dropped for?
A week.
Oh, so just 1 week?
Yeah, just 1
week. So
week.
they gave you meds and it went away?
What's up?
They gave you meds and they went away?
I literally just had to stay off my leg for a week. I literally just laid in a rack and I lifted my leg up to get the swelling, and I took some, probably like some ibuprofen, and I was good.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only medicine that the corpsmen fucking issue out. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, which is, I don't know if you've ever got dropped or went to medical, but it's so funny because...
Not in boot camp, no.
Boot camp medical, it's like prison, because they go off of days. They're like, what training... Because the first thing I did, they start pressing me. They're like, what training day are you? And I was like, I was in receiving. And they're like, so you haven't made training day 1? I was like, no. They're like, you're getting the worst fire watch. It's like prison in there.
Man.
They had the leader who was like on training day like 78, and he's I run this. And
I gotcha.
It's so funny just looking back, like how the life was for that,
Now, I have a question. Did changing your socks help out at all and your swelling going down?
Absolutely. Drink water and changing your socks.
Oh, so there is some truth behind the myth. Wow.
Yeah. Simple, sometimes better,
Okay, got you. Okay, cool. So, you got dropped week 1.
Yep.
And then, was that the craziest thing that happened to you?
No, but that was a very big moment for me, because going in, me and my buddy were like, we're gonna do this thing together. We're gonna graduate together. It's gonna be awesome. And then week one, plan goes to crap.
Yeah.
But no, I think the only time one of my recruits and drill instructors kind of got in a fight, and so one of the recruits and drill instructors got in a fight.
The recruit with the drill instructors?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so we were going up the stairs, and I remember the drill instructor was going down with his platoon. Our platoon was going up, and one of the recruits accidentally bumped into the drill instructor. Ooh. So, so the drill instructor was like, get on my way, recruit, and we called him Old Man Jenkins because this dude was like 29 years old. This, he's been around the block. He was this old guy.
Compared to the 17, 18-year-old recruit, he got 10 years of experience on him.
Yeah, he probably didn't like some, our drill instructor's probably only 24, 25. So he probably didn't like a guy younger than him push him.
Yeah, of course.
So he pushed him back. And so I think my drill, the drill, he wasn't mine, but one of the drill instructors like punched him in the face. And I remember immediately we got put online. Like it was like, we were like, oh my God, like training kind of stopped. And we were like, oh, this is serious. And I remember our senior came in and he was like, do you want to press charges? And the recruit took this long pause and he goes, I don't need to drop. He was like, why do I need to make charges if I just fell? And my drill instructor looked at him and he goes, you fell? And he goes, this recruit fell, sir. And he was like, all right, get the fuck outside, go drill. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay,
so it's kind of like this really cool moment where like, he butted heads with our drill instructors a lot. Like he was one of those guys who was really hard for him to conform. But I think they gained a lot of respect for him that day because, obviously he could have ended that dude's career. Like he easily ended that dude's career.
Yeah.
And so, but other than that, no, those were kind of like the two that stuck out.
Wow, that's crazy because you can see the generational change. You do that shit to a 17, 18-year-old now. It was him, and he looked at me, and he knew about it.
Yeah.
Call my mom.
Yeah.
So it's you can see the generational change because this happened what year?
2016.
Yeah, dude. 2016, 29 years
and
old already.
He's 10 years older. So imagine if he was there in 2006.
Yeah.
Or he was a little bit older. Like
2007. Whenever he'd probably be in charge of those. That's probably the way he looked at it.
Yeah.
It's like, not saying it's right because I also joined when I was 17 years old. And, when I picked up, corporal, I got those, PFCs and Lance Corporals that were older than me, and they thought they were gonna get away with it just because they were older. It's like, no. Listen, this is not how it works.
Yeah.
But in their mind, it does.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they approach it the right way, the problem with those people is that they approach it the wrong way.
Absolutely.
But if you approach it the right way, it's like, hey, man, listen, man, I'm a little bit older. I can help you out. Like I can help you out to make better decisions, to do this because this is how I felt when you said this. Like, can we talk about it?
It's funny you say that because we'll talk about this later too, but I deployed super early. I deployed 4 months into the fleet. So I was a senior very early. Like I think I was a senior at like 20 years old, with boots or junior Marines, whatever. And we had one guy that was like 26, 27. I mean, this guy was old looking too. And I came up to him and I told him, I said, look, dude, you're older. You have a wife, you have a kid. I'm not going to give you this hard time. I mean, I'm going to give you a hard time. Like you're going to go police call, you're going to go do your PFC dues. But I'm not over here to make your life hell in the sense of like, you're mature. If you show me that you're mature, I will treat you.
That's a great way of looking at it.
You know what I mean? Like
that's a great way of looking at it. Because the one of the main topics of conversation that revolve around all of our podcasts is maturity, and maturity comes with experience. If you can, essentially, experience comes with time and age, right? So, that's great that you put that in there because, if you are able to show that maturity at your age, then yes, 100%, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, moving on from boot camp. ITB.
Yeah.
Infantry Training Battalion. How was that for you?
Well, now it's changed. I don't know if that makes me old. I don't know if I can say back in my corps now because ITB is like 6 months now. It used to be 2 months.
Okay.
And so
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So ITB is 6 months now. They try.
Was it 6 months for you?
No, it's 2 months.
Okay, gotcha.
I was in the older Marine Corps.
Oh yeah, back in my day.
Back in my corps.
Yeah, you need a cigarette right here. Yeah. Okay. No, go ahead.
No, ITB was kind of, it was like another check in the box because and this is why I have my complaints about ITB being 6 months is because you have these sergeants who, I'm not saying they do their job, but like they're just basically babysitting the platoon. They send you to these classes, you go do the classes, you go to the field of defense. They tell you to go dig for 6 hours, leave you alone. They come back and shoot some blanks at you. And, it's kind of just a placeholder for you. I mean, they do give you some really, if you were a good platoon, which mine were, they gave some really good insight on what the infantry's like. We actually had a combat veteran in our class. He was combat engineers trying to go infantry. So he deployed to Afghan. That was awesome because he sat us around and told us war stories and what to expect. But really, you're just hiking and you're just learning basic information. And the basic information they teach you is the foundation of your infantry life, but it's just more of like a check in the box, at least for it being 2 months. Because I mean, what can you really teach someone in 2 months?
Yeah, because the thing with the infantry is that infantry is all repetition.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then once you really grasp that, it's really hard to forget.
And a lot of infantry stuff too is shooter's preference. So when you go to unit, like their how they do things might be different from other companies. Because I went from Charlie Company to Alpha Company, and their whole policies change on how they do things. And so it really just depends on your company and battalion as well.
Okay, so ITB wasn't really memorable for you. You only had 2 months in there.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you said 2016, right? This was like around 2016.
I graduated in like January or February of 17, so now it's probably February, March of
Wasn't
17.
this when females was
Yes.
starting to come?
It was.
Okay, so did you
They
have
were in
any
the class.
females?
They were in the class behind me. So
Oh, okay.
that was really controversial too, because at the end of our cycle, we started getting the information of like, oh, or how are the women doing, and a lot of hearsay, of, oh, they're not really passing, but they're being passed, and what might or may not go down on the squad bay, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't experience it firsthand, but that was in a class or two behind me.
Do you ever had it in your entire time in the Marine Corps? Do you ever had work with any females? An infantry
Yes.
female?
Yes, my very last 2 or 3 months, we had a boot drop that had 4 or 5 females. In it.
Okay. Do you feel that females belong in the infantry?
Boy, you're throwing me the curveball. This is going to get spicy in the comments. I think if the Marine Corps wants to instill women in the infantry, I'll say this: if they want them in the infantry, they're going to have to change the whole culture shift. It's going to be a big culture shift. I think that if they want it to be successful, you need to stop this whole "they're not passing, but we'll pass them anyways" concept. If they're still doing that, because it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, or even if they start, letting anyone into the infantry. If you can't get your pack to the fight, and you can't bring your pack back after the fight, we don't want you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I will say though, I do know people there, because there's a little bit more females in the infantry on the West Coast. It's all the same stories from what I've been told, as far as female PFC, Dayton squad leader, Dayton corporal, she's getting favoritism shown. I've seen females work in the Norwegian army. I know it works in the Israeli military. I'm not saying we can't do it, but there needs to be a cultural shift. There needs to be this whole "don't eat where you sleep," culture.
Well, the real message is don't shit where you sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
But I get that. You don't have to keep it PG, but what do you mean specifically from somebody coming out, from the outside of the infantry? Because I can share my experiences that I've had with the infantry. I had good and bad.
Yeah.
But what do you mean, you coming from the infantry? What do you mean by a culture shift?
So the culture shift, let's call it how it is. If you are in 29 Palms and a grunt unit for 2 months, and all you do is just see the same dudes every day, you're going out and training with the same dudes every day, and you get a day or two on 29 Palms Libo, what do you think their thoughts are when they see the first female Marine or corpsman or civilian female, right? Like, it's a very macho, very high testosterone job.
Yeah.
And now imagine if you had a woman in the hooch, or not even in the hooch. Imagine she was in a separate hooch, but you're out there training with her. You know what I mean? We had female combat camera, the same comments that come there. And, whether you might say, hey, that's just dudes being dudes, or if you think that's wrong, if you want females to be in the infantry, there has to be this line of sexual harassment and, whatever, sexual comments, you have to stop. But at the same time, women, they need to start being held to the standard of can they pass or fail. And not so much as a social aspect, but the physical aspect, because there's dudes who join the infantry and they just physically can't hack it, and we send them away. And I think if we keep passing these females, if they still are, and they can't hack it in the infantry, the first thing that's going to happen is negative counseling. Then they're going to get 6105, and then they're going to get moved to another job. And now they have this disdain taste for the Marine Corps and the infantry because they were set up for failure. And now it just kind of repeats the cycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was, it's funny that you mentioned that, because there was a podcast that was done by the Sit Red podcast. Shout out to the Sit Red podcast, where they interviewed the first female mortarman, if I'm not mistaken. I think she was a mortarman.
I met her. She was in ITB, or she was in our holding platoon when I was in ITB.
Okay. So, and yeah, she firsthand, she was one of the first ones that said, yeah, no, females don't belong in the infantry. And she said something amongst those lines.
Yeah.
Right. And not only that, because you said something about, PFC dating corporal or whatever. But the real problem becomes when that Lance Corporal PFC don't want to date the corporal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when
Yeah.
the real shit comes into play, you know?
Yeah.
Regardless of, because this happens all around the Marine Corps, not just the infantry. You know, Marines are gonna be Marines. They're gonna date each other. They're gonna date whoever the hell is it that they want.
Yeah.
But in a very macho environment, kind of like how you mentioned it, that's whenever it comes. Because again, I've been around the infantry dudes, and some of the jokes and some of the shit that y'all joke about or gets joked about. Yeah, people can definitely take it the wrong way.
Because what's the old saying? It's a joke till it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I remember when I was on deployment, and when I was on my first deployment, I did the 11th MEU, and I remember my berthing was right across the infantry berthing, and every single time that the infantry dudes would go out on Libo, in any port, it was a fucking issue.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because they got drunk and they wanted to fight.
Yep.
Like, period. They wanted to fight. And, you know, I remember, man, like, we came back from that deployment and just me, dude, as soon as I got into the, you know, the little bus that drove us to the 43 area, dude, I said around 15 cuss words in less than 2 minutes. And the bus driver looks at me like shocked. She didn't. It was a female too. She wouldn't say anything, obviously, because she kind of been around the block already with Marines. But she kind of looked at me, and I was like,
What rank were you at the time?
I was a corporal.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, damn, man, like I need to do, you know, like, damn, I need to tone it down. Like I'm back to the reality. I'm back to civilian world,
Yeah.
you know. But moving back to you, brother, you said that month 4 in the fleet. And I want to talk before you actually went on deployment.
Okay.
Because I want people to truly understand what it is to be a boot, a brand new PFC or private in an infantry battalion.
You know, one of the things that people always talk about, is this part in a movie realistic, this, that, and the other? You know, people always talk about combat, right? Like Black Hawk Down, they're like, is that accurate?
Yeah.
One of the most accurate things I've ever seen in a war movie, or just a movie in general, was in Jarhead. When they pull up to, you know, with the buses after boot camp or ITB or whatever, and all the seniors are on the catwalk and they're looking at you, you know, like hawks, you know, looking at prey. That is the real deal for me. That was what it was like. And I remember, you know, people always say safety in numbers. There was no safety. You know what I mean? We had about a 30, 40, you know, PFC drop from ITB, and we got off the bus. And let me tell you, drill instructors, recruiters, very, you know, memorable people to a lot of people. Seeing those guys, my seniors, for the first time, it was an insane reality of like, wow, these are grunts. These are actual, like, you know, these are the real deal. This isn't a recruiter who all looks nice and tidy and has his hair perfect. This isn't a drill instructor where, you know, they talk in their frog voice and they're, you know, you can, even as a recruit, you know, they're putting on a persona. When my corporals came up and they're like, get the fuck in line. What are y'all doing? You know, like, this is it. This is who they are. And, you know, they file you out, they put you in your platoons, and all of a sudden all these lance corporals start berating you. But there's one corporal in there, so when you say I lance corporal, are you calling this corporal a lance corporal? What's your, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just typical stuff. And they don't do this anymore, but drop day used to be on Thursdays, field day. So what do you think?
Of course.
So what do you think we're doing our first day in the fleet?
Chinese field day.
Yeah, our already cleaned room.
Yeah.
Seniors coming in, all of them, you know, they're
What do you mean seniors? You talk about like senior lance corporals, or you talk about like corporals?
anyone that's above me. Anyone that's not you know.
So do you have to refer to lance corporals that have been longer to you as senior lance corporals?
Well, I mean, I would call him Lance Corporal. Even when I picked up Lance Corporal, I still called him Lance Corporal.
Okay.
And I, you know, I do believe in the senior Lance Corporal. I will die on that hill.
Okay.
That is a thing that I think should stay, at least in the infantry.
Okay.
But they would come in, you know, question you. What's a 9 line? I don't know. How the fuck you don't know? And, you know, like now I'm cleaning and studying, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to go into the down and dirty what happened. Nothing crazy, but it's like, I'm not going to over here tell lukewarm war stories about like what seniors do in the barracks.
Okay.
But it was intimidating. It was scary. I remember meeting my squad leader for the first time, Sergeant Garcia, shout out. phenomenal Marine. If I could ever make Marine of the Year, it's him. He was an Afghan vet. He walked the walk and he talked the talk.
Hell yeah.
He was hard, but he was fair, and he treated us like what I imagined a PFC would be. Like, yeah, we would get it tough. Like, he would be hard on us. Like, he set us up to a high standard, but he was very fair. Even my team leaders, you know, it was tough. It was brutal. We would be up 2 hours before PT cleaning. We would be up 2 hours, you know, after we probably should be, you know, studying. And there was no time to relax. Like, I don't want to compare the new Marine Corps to the old Marine Corps, but it was not like it for the new PFCs how it was for me.
Yeah, and I can tell you this. This is the reason why I think that this happens in those, because you got to think about, right? You got a bunch of brand new 17 to 20 year olds, well, probably 18 to 20 year olds, even 21 year olds, that just got to a brand new place, and they're just ready to fuck shit up. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to fuck shit up whenever you are extremely tired because of the PT and having to be, you know, up since like 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. You know, my dad's been in the military for almost 40 years now, believe it or not. Yeah, for almost 40 years. And he told me that that's what he used to do in his Marines back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, yeah, I would run them to the fucking ground because on Fridays, because Marines don't want to, they just want to rack out instead of having to go through the fucking troubles over the weekends. At least this was his mentality. Yeah, there's still gonna be that one Marine that's still gonna do it, and that's the one that usually gets in trouble. It's like starts driving, you know, and then all of a sudden he might not even been drunk, but he was like extremely tired, which is about the same thing. And then he ends up crashing and, you know, causing like a huge accident. So I want to know, though, I really have to press on it because I want to know, how was that first field day for you?
So I remember, you know, they were coming in, you know, in your face, like they're essentially, it's like prison. It really is. You know, you have, like, we, you know, talk about the NCO Corps. The NCO Corps, whenever I was in, or like whenever I was a PFC, that was tight. It didn't matter if you were, I mean, unless you were an absolute shitbag, you were untouchable. Like there was like 1 or 2 seniors where they're like, you don't respect that guy. That guy, he's a shitbag. He's getting out. Don't talk to him.
Oh, it's crazy that the shitbags are the ones that get out.
Yeah, you know, but they would come in drunk, you know, like typical drunk, fucking with you. You know, nothing too crazy. I didn't do a bleach shower or anything, nothing crazy like that. But, you know, but they would come in. I mean, they're like, you know, how many burpees do you think you do right now? How many push-ups do you think? Can you do a scorpion? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Okay.
Put you in a wall locker. You know, just very vanilla stuff. Like whatever.
Well, some people wouldn't consider that vanilla.
No. But you know, looking back, I don't regret. Like I don't think that was too much, because I do think there's an extent, right? But I always went in with the impression of it's the Marine Corps. At any point, if I was under field day, even later, and they found a piece of trash, do 20 burpees right now. Okay, hey, it's the Marine Corps. This is the Marine Corps Infantry. This isn't, you know, the Air Force. This isn't daycare. You know, my parents aren't paying you to make me all happy and feel good inside. You know, you're training me to be this certain level. And I always had this weird confusion with the Marine Corps because they try really hard to have this Spartan warrior mindset. You know, like, oh, I mean, you go to any battalion, like, you know, First Ave, I'm sure they have a typewriter and a rifle cross, you know, with a skull and a beret. And it's but they're like, but we're going to treat every Marine, you know, with respect, you know, this, that, and the other, which you should. But there just seems to be like this weird line of like, we're tough, but we're not going to be mean. You know what I mean? It's So, but they did a good line. I never at any point felt that I was, you know, actually like hazed to the point where I need to report something. To me, anytime I did something wrong, it was okay. I just did something wrong, and I need to fix it.
Do you feel that it's okay just because it was done to you for you to do it to somebody else that's coming after you, just because it was done to you and it's tradition in the infantry?
No, and I want to say this. If you want to be a good leader, in the Marine Corps, never ever try to mimic somebody that you're not. And when we had boots, I'm not a yeller, right? Like, I'm not this guy. I'm not a bulldog. I'm going to talk to you like a man, I mean, if I have to get to that point, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be one of these guys who's just going to be like this absolute, bulldog. I talk all my guys with respect. Hey, you're going to do this. If you give me a reason to be a certain way, sure. But I found out my leadership style is if I treat you like an adult and you be an adult, we're saving each other time. And that kind of bit me in the ass a little bit later because it hindered me picking up corporal a little bit because
Really?
all my counselors or all my counselings, it was, hey, you got to be harder on your guys. And I would say my guys are first class PFT, CFTers. They get out and they have no trouble. They do everything they need to. Why am I getting punished for it? But that's a different story, for later on. But no, being in the fleet, and like we were scared. I locked my doors. But it's funny though, because for our unit, every 2 PFCs to a room had a senior lance corporal or a corporal. So we had 2 boots, 1 senior. And my senior was really cool. He was, an EASer. He came in, drank his
Terminal Lance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Drank his 612 pack, put on National Geographics, put it on full blast. It was loud. He had to have it like on 50 or something crazy. So I remember
probably all the shooting. He probably deaf.
Yeah. He was, so like at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Like I had to get used to it. It was like the brown recluse spider goes upon its prey. Like 3 a.m. I'm like, dude, I can't sleep. Like I had to put earbuds in just to like try and block the sound out. But I was very fortunate. But I have some funny stories though. Like, because at the end of the day, you can't be mean to your PFC, all day. Yeah. I had a friend who his seniors, before he went to sleep, he would make them do check the locks. He'd be like, lights. I'm not going to say his name, but he would go like, good night, chesty puller. They would say it together and he goes, I love you to the lens.
This is all 3 of you guys in a room.
Well, this isn't me. This is my buddy. So he would tell him, we'll say James for the sake of it. He'll be like, good night, James. Good night, Corporal. I love you, James. I love you too, Corporal. And they just mess with. Sometimes it's funny though.
God.
They come.
No, that's just hilarious. I don't know. Yeah, man. I don't know. That's good, and I appreciate you sharing the actual reality of some of this shit.
You're gonna do your dues. I don't think you can do it now, but I had to be the DD for my seniors one night, and honestly, in hindsight, best night of a PSC because my seniors took me out to Driftwoods before it was Platinums. And
what is this? I'm not familiar.
It's the strip club that's right off the main gate.
Okay, because this is all happening on the East Coast, guys.
Yeah.
He did his entire 6 years in the East Coast. Okay,
and
I wanted to put that in there for reference.
Yep. And so my seniors, of course, I was sitting there in a corner being a good boot, and I remember my this girl came up and talked to me, this stripper, and I've never been in a strip club before this moment, and she was like, "You want to dance?" And my senior's like, "Go ahead, go." And to me, I thought she was like dancing with a song. I'm 18, you know what I mean? Like, and she took me to the back room and she goes, "Do you have cash?" And I was like, "Oh my God," she meant like a dance. And my seniors were having it. They had a good time, and they took me up. And I don't know how the new barracks are, but the old barracks, you were able to climb onto the roof. So like you're 4 stories high. And man, they sat me up there. They're like, "We appreciate you DDing us tonight." I mean, these guys were bulldogs to me, 24/7, hard. But like they had this moment of like camaraderie. They're like, "Hey man, here's a beer. Go back to your room, lock your door, don't open the door for anyone." And they're like, "But thank you." And it's they were
but that type of shit I agree with because that's looking out after each other. That's
they were tough, but they also showed those moments of humanity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it really made me appreciate those moments instead of it just being because now whenever I was leaving, squad leader was drinking with all his guys every weekend. Like even the PFCs. Whenever I was a PFC, I didn't leave my room, and I sure wasn't going to go next to my corporal's room, let alone my squad leaders. So, I mean, it's a culture shift. And whether people agree or disagree, that's just how the Marine Corps is now.
Now, let me ask you this. 2024, you already being out of the Marine Corps, what advice do you have to those infantry Marines, 0311s, 0331s, that are currently serving right now in order for them to be better leaders to their juniors?
I'm going to say, like I said, you don't ever try to be anything you're not. And I think the best piece of advice I ever got was you work for the man below you, not the man above you. And so, obviously I have a sergeant, I have a staff sergeant gunny, and I listen to what they do. But my whole job should be making my fire team's life easier. I should be doing the best of batting for them. I should be trying to not necessarily make their lives easier in a cushy way, but like, hey, we have a field op going, coming up. Are they prepared? Are they financially prepared? Are they physically prepared? Is all their stuff, ready for us to go to a 2-week field op? Are they mentally ready? On the weekend, just checking, hey man, are you good? Like, do you need anything? And it's just constantly checking on your guys. And that doesn't necessarily have to be this like little pat down, like, hey buddy, you doing okay? It could just be, hey man, you doing good? Wife good? Family good? Financials good? Car good? And if they have any problem, they can address it that way. Because believe it or not, a lot of guys do have problems. They just don't want to admit it. Obviously it's, because everyone's scared that if you have a problem, it's bad. However, if you go up to your corporal and you're like, corporal, like if you can solve problems so much earlier if you just take that step in addressing it.
Man, that is spot on. But I will tell you this, I will even take it a step further with that, right? It's also understanding physical and verbal cues, because what happens is, as a corporal and as a corporal, and I would even say as a sergeant, right? That's not really your job. You can say it's debatable. Yeah. We can say it is, but in reality, you can ask, but it's not really your job to solve those issues.
It is your job to find it.
Exactly. But the problem is that some leaders, they go through those checklists, and that's very easy. But if it was me asking you, hey man, how's your finances? How's your family? How's your wife? How's this? Oh, they're all good, corporal. Okay, good. Boom. Next person. Yeah. Instead of like, when you see a verbal cue or when you see a physical cue, be like, hold on a second, man. You kind of slowed down to answering that one. What's going on?
Yeah.
Just asking that follow-on questions, that will really mean to your junior that you're really trying to understand what's really going on in that situation, and you can prevent a big issue. Because let's face it, what is the number one solution that Marines self-prescribe themselves? Jack Daniels.
Yep.
Beer, alcohol, and sometimes in some extreme cases, even other types of harder drugs. So it's very important for everybody that's out there to understand this. Ask that follow-on question if you see a verbal or physical cue when you ask the Marine that question, instead of just going through the motions and moving on to the next one.
I have a good story for that. I had a PFC who was a scrawny guy. Like, I know I'm not the biggest guy on earth, but I looked like Dwayne Johnson next to him. And he just struggled as a Marine. And I went up to him and I said, hey, what's going on? Why are you like, I believe in communicating and talking first, depending on the situation. And this guy was like, I don't know, corporal. I'm like, how are you eating? Like, what are you eating a day? Like, like there's no way you're this tired. And he goes, I eat dinner. And I'm like, okay, what about breakfast and lunch? And he goes, no, I don't have time in the morning for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what about lunch? He goes, well, I don't want to walk to the chow hall. I said, dude, you're 110 pounds and you're eating. What are you eating at the chow? Like a pizza. I'm like, dude, you're eating. I was like, no, I want to put you on a meal plan. I want to have you for at least the first month or two. You're gonna pick someone to walk with you to get chow every day, and I want them to report to me what you eat. And believe it or not, dude started putting on weight. But I mean, it's we talk about leadership. Leadership's more than just saying point your rifle at that target and shoot it. Being a leader is more than just saying like cool jargon on the radio. Being a leader is looking out for someone mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, and addressing it, because it was just that simple conversation. He was scared to walk to the chow hall. He didn't want to walk that far. He was a new PFC. He felt intimidated.
Yeah.
Hey, go walk with him for at least a month. Let him, it's 2 blocks over, walk with him. I don't care if you don't have a car, you get some good exercise in, get your steps in, and go figure out, we'll figure it out that way.
Dude, it's... Again, thank you for bringing that up, man, because that brings me back memories of how scared shitless I was when I was a brand new Marine. And some people forget that, man. Like, some people forget, like, I was scared shitless too. You know, I hit the fleet as a PFC in an artillery battery. And yeah, I was scared fucking shitless too. And I honestly, until you mentioned that, I didn't remember because I was the same way. I looked at it. I was like, I was going through a phase, and I didn't even know about it. To be honest with you, like, I don't know if it was depression. I don't know what the fuck it was. I as a 17, 18-year-old, you don't understand the feelings that you're really going through. You doing that, having somebody else go, dude. Because I remember, I barely got out of my room.
I did too.
And that's why a lot of people, dude. Thank you. Like, dude, shit is starting to click in my fucking brain housing group right now.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, that's the reason why a lot of people end up getting married as a PFC and Lance Corporal.
Absolutely.
You're scared shitless of talking to anybody else. You're in a brand new location, brand new people. The people around you are scary. They don't want to really talk to you. And the next thing you know, the only person you have is like that girl that you met at the first time that you went out into, you know, town by yourself or with a couple of friends, or your high school sweetheart or whatever, and then that is the comfort that you find. It's like, oh baby, let's get married, even though we've only been talking for like 2 weeks. Because that makes you feel comfortable. That clicks so fucking bad.
I remember getting the Stofers or the, you know, quick easy meals, because during lunch I didn't want to leave for dinner. I wasted so much money. I'm thankful I had the bonus, but I had so much money that, well, like, not so much, you know, like $3,000. That's a lot of money for 17.
Yeah.
You know, I bought Stofers. I would microwave food in my room because I didn't want to go to the chow hall, or, you know, as a PFC, I didn't want to leave my room. I remember one time I was like calling my grandma, and I was on the phone, and one of the seniors walked by, not my platoon. He goes, "I'm sorry, I walked right by you." And like, I looked and was like, I'm on the phone. I don't give a fuck who you're on the phone with. If it's the president, I'm a corporal, and you're going to give me a proper, you know what I mean? So like, no one wants to leave the room.
In an infantry battalion or infantry location, regardless of where the fuck you're at, like, walking around with PFC chevrons is 100% a liability.
But not anymore.
It's 100% a liability. Like you're gonna get looked at, and somebody's gonna find something wrong with you.
Absolutely. It's not like that, no, though. And you know, it's
you'll be surprised. It gotta be like that somewhere.
Oh well, yeah, to a smaller degree.
Yeah, it's gotta be like that somewhere.
But like they really switched the cultural shift from intimidation to a family. They're like, hey, welcome to, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're a family now. You know, if you have a problem, text your sergeant. He'll tell you where to go on the weekends. He has all these places that he knows that are good places for you to hang out.
Do you think that's okay?
I feel like if it is, it shouldn't be the first sergeant, or I don't feel like it should be anyone other than the squad leader saying that. That shouldn't, first off, it's not the sergeant's job to babysit, right? Like I mentioned earlier, my mom and dad didn't pay, you know, any squad leader, team leader, senior mind to make me feel good and cuddly inside. They paid me to train me to kill people. However, I don't think you should be scared to walk around the barracks, especially on a weekend, right? Like, I do believe in the leave alone policy of like, hey, let them unwind, let them whatever. But I don't believe someone should tell someone else how to treat someone, in the sense of like that. That's not my sergeant's job to coddle, you know, these young guys. You know what I mean?
Got you. So, Brandon, we've been having this amazing conversation for about the past 50 minutes. We haven't even gotten started on your deployments yet.
Yes.
You know, because we're talking about really the first year and a half of your entire career, and we're shedding light on a lot of good positive things. So that way, people are considering infantry, or if you've been in the infantry yourself, you would compare stories on how different things have been, because he joined in 2016.
At the very end of G1.
At the very end of G1. Imagine if you joined in 2001, 2006, 2009, how different your experience have been for him. Or if you're joining currently now, let us know in the comments. We're going to go to a part 2. We're going to talk about his deployments to Syria. And we're also going to be talking about another deployment that he did. That's all going to be in the next episode. So make sure that you guys go to any of the videos that you guys are seeing right here. And make sure that you guys follow everyone, myself, and Barry Bull on social media. Brandon, where could people reach out to you at?
I'm gonna have to figure out. I think my Instagram is Brandon Evans _97, Well, I'll figure it out for the next episode.
We'll put the right one somewhere where you're gonna see Brandon's name. I will make sure that my production manager has the right information. You guys can reach out to him. I will see you guys in part 2. Have a good one.